Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Diana Cervera. I am the Education Program Manager for California Lawyers for the Arts San Diego office. I am a 32-year-old Latinx woman with dark brown shoulder length hair, and I'm sitting in a space with a green wall behind me. Welcome to this special webinar presented in collaboration with the National Endowment for the Arts. We are so excited to have you with us today. As many of you know, California Lawyers for the Arts is a statewide nonprofit organization serving the arts community by providing a number of legal and educational services across the state. Before I introduce our guests from the National Endowment for the Arts, I would like to share a short video from our Executive Director, Alma Robinson, which will provide more information about California Lawyers for the Arts and their services across the state. Thank you for being here with us today.
Hello, my name is Alma Robinson, and I am the Executive Director of California Lawyers for the Arts. CLA is a statewide nonprofit organization that was founded in 1974 to serve artists and arts organizations of all disciplines with advocacy as well as services that provide support with legal and business issues. With staffed offices in San Francisco, Berkeley, Sacramento, Los Angeles, and San Diego, we provide several core services. First, we provide legal counseling to specialized attorneys who provide assistance with a variety of intellectual property questions, as well as contract reviews and negotiations and other important business issues. Depending on the client's financial status, legal assistance may be available on a pro bono or reduced fee basis. We also provide a specialized program that assists independent inventors and small startups with their patent applications. To help with situations involving disputes, we provide a range of alternative services, including negotiations counseling, mediation, and arbitration that can avoid the expense and hassle of going to court. Finally, we offer a full menu of educational programs that include workshops, symposia, and conferences on various legal topics for artists and arts organizations. Many of these programs are posted on our YouTube channel, and we encourage you to use these tools to educate yourself on the legal issues before you reach out for specialized assistance from our organization. Thank you for joining today's program, and please consider joining CLA on our website at www.calawyersforthearts.org so that we can continue to maintain our full range of services. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. My name is Gloria Ruiz Oster. I'm the Deputy Director at California Lawyers for the Arts. I'm a woman with medium-length brown hair and light brown framed glasses. I'm wearing a navy blue button-down blouse and a wide smile. I'm seated in front of a large painting with bold brush strokes and very bright colors. We're absolutely delighted that you all could join us. And we're thrilled to have two members of the National Endowment for the Arts team here with us today. As many of you may know, the endowment provides national recognition and support for the arts community. Since its inception, the NEA has supported arts and corrections programs, and we're so enthusiastic to hear the details about the new funding available through the American Rescue Plan program. California Lawyers for the Arts has benefited from the NEA's support through multiple grant programs throughout our history. Recently, through the Locals program, CLA has been able to expand our own arts and corrections programs nationally. We're currently working with state arts councils and local arts agencies in Louisiana, Ohio, Michigan, Texas, and New York, sharing successful strategies for setting up and evaluating the effectiveness of demonstration projects in correctional facilities. We're so appreciative of the NEA's continuing support. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenters this afternoon. Please join me in welcoming Accessibility Director Beth Bienvenu and Media Arts Specialist Sarah Burford. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you, Gloria, and thank you to Diana and Alma for inviting us here to speak with you today. Sarah and I are so happy to see so many people interested in our funding opportunity under the American Rescue Plan. My name is Beth Bienvenu. I am the Director of Accessibility at the National Endowment for the Arts. I am a white woman with shoulder-length brown hair. I'm wearing a black and white print shirt, and I'm sitting in my home office in front of a purple wall with some plants in the background and a colorful painting by a local artist here in Washington, D.C. I also want to note that I am a person who stutters, and so you may be lucky enough to hear that come out today. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So I'll turn it over to my colleague, Sarah, to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you today. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Sarah Burford. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a media arts specialist at the National Endowment for the Arts. I'm a white woman with shoulder-length brown hair. I'm wearing a red blouse, and I'm sitting in an office with a bookshelf behind me and a plant and a couple of framed paintings. And again, wonderful to be here with you all. I'll turn it over to Beth to kick us off.
Thank you. So I'll start off, and I know that our arts and corrections organizations were hit especially hard during this past year because the crucial work that you do was shut down by the lockdowns. I spent several months talking with teaching artists from across the country, and I saw how desperate everyone was to get back to their students who were all locked down, isolated, and at high risk of contagion under less ideal conditions. I know that there was a lot of illness and loss of life. So I know it was a hard year, and I applaud every organization and teaching artist that worked tirelessly to find ways to reach their students. And I was thrilled to see the ingenuity and the creative ways that everyone found to reach students through correspondence style courses, audio, lovely packets, and other types of print materials that they could send into the prisons, and sometimes even using video and video-based correspondence. So I really want to applaud everyone for their hard work this past year. And as it opens up, I hope people can continue to do this work in the excellent way that has been happening. So the National Endowment for the Arts has supported arts and corrections programs for decades, going back to our earliest days. We've supported work in partnership with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, through our funding for arts organizations and our grants, by working with networks such as California Lawyers for the Arts and the Justice Arts Coalition, and also capacity building grants, such as the work that California Lawyers for the Arts is working with right now. So we really want you all to know that we do support this work. And that's one of the reasons why we're going to talk to you today about our grant opportunities. So our goal today is to demystify the National Endowment for the Arts and our application processes. We want you to leave this meeting know that the NEA is a funding resource available to nonprofits, schools, local governments, etc. This presentation will provide a general overview of the NEA and the grant programs that we offer, and then we'll get into the details about this opportunity made by the American Rescue Plan. In addition to our regular grant programs, which we'll talk about in a minute, the NEA will distribute $135 million from the American Rescue Plan. So of the $135 million, 40% has already been allocated to state and regional arts organizations for regranting through their own programs. We will distribute the remaining 60% to arts organizations and local arts agencies. The funding will be available for general operating support, and guidelines are available on our website now. And I'll just mention it. We'll mention it a few times. It's arts.gov, and you'll see a big thing right on the main page about the American Rescue Plan funding. So these funds are intended to help support jobs in the arts sector, keep the doors open to arts organizations nationwide, and assist the field in its response to and recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. This grant hopes to reach a broad constituency, including organizations that serve populations that are underserved, as well as those with small and medium-sized budgets, those from rural to urban communities, and those that may be applying for federal support through the Arts Endowment for the first time. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. We're going to go back and forth a little bit so you don't hear one voice all the time. I will turn it over to Sarah to take it from here.
Thank you so much, and wonderful. We've got a great mix in our audience today. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the kind of funding overall that the agency gives. Generally, our funding supports arts projects. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the types of organizations that are eligible to apply for funding. And that eligibility is open to tax-exempt organizations, including 501c3 nonprofits, units of state or local government, that includes local arts agencies, educational institutions, as well as federally recognized tribal communities or tribes. And then on the right side of the screen, you'll see some examples of things that we're not able to fund. And again, this is as it pertains to all of our agency programs. General operating support is one of those things that we generally are not able to fund, with the exception, of course, of the American Rescue Plan, as we'll talk about in today's presentation. We're also not able to fund academic degrees, facility construction or renovation, individual artists, with a few exceptions in our literary arts program, and fiscal sponsors. And now I'll talk a little bit about eligibility requirements and what's really needed to be eligible to apply for Arts Endowment funding. You need to be a nonprofit at the time of your application. You need to have a 3-year history of arts programming, and you should be in compliance with reporting requirements for any previous NEA awards that you may have received. And a note, again, this is for our regular grant programs, not for the American Rescue Plan, that we also require a 1-to-1 cost share or match of non-federal funds for all of our other grant programs. And that match really can be achieved in a variety of ways, from a cash match or earned income, other grants you might be applying for, or in-kind donations. There's a variety of ways to make that match up. Again, for the American Rescue Plan, as we'll get into, that match won't be required. The grant review process includes 3 levels of review. The first level of review is made up of a panel of peers who are experts in the field. For some grant programs, we also have a layperson serving on those panels. That's someone who's knowledgeable about, but not directly making their living in the arts. All of our panels are diverse in terms of geography, gender, ethnicity, and the expertise of artistic disciplines represented. And each panelist reviews their applications using the review criteria of artistic excellence and artistic merit. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means specifically for the American Rescue Plan later on in the presentation as well. Once a panel has reviewed applications, their recommendations are then submitted to the National Council of the Arts for their review and approval. The council then forwards its recommendations to the chairman of the National Endowment for the Arts, and the chairman is the one who provides final review and approval for all of our grants. And I want to note here that if you're interested to become involved with this review process, we're always looking for new panelists. It's a really wonderful way to understand the work of the agency, see some incredible projects happening across the country. And we'll talk a bit more about how you can volunteer to serve as a panelist at the end of our conversation today. And I'll now pass it to Beth to talk a little bit more about our different funding categories.
Thank you, Sarah. So before we get to the American Rescue Plan funding opportunity, we wanted to share a little bit about our normal funding categories offered by the NEA. The funding categories for organizations include grants for arts projects, Challenge America, Our Town, and our research grants. These are the largest grants we offer, and nonprofit organizations receive the bulk of our direct funding. Our grants for arts projects is our largest funding stream, and funding is available across 15 artistic disciplines for all stages of the artistic process. This can include creation, presentation and exhibition, arts education and enrichment, as well as services to the field, such as conferences or professional development. Our Challenge America grants primarily support small organizations to extend the reach of the arts to populations that are underserved, including those whose opportunities to experience the arts are limited by geography, ethnicity, economics, or disability. And the Our Town grants provide support for creative placemaking projects, which strengthen local communities through arts and culture. And finally, we offer grants to universities and other organizations to support research on the impact of the arts. You can find more information on our website, arts.gov. And in addition, we support designated state arts agencies and 6 U.S. regional arts organizations through our partnership agreements. By law, 40% of the NEA's grant funds are designated for the states and regions. And 40% of relief funding through the American Rescue Plan has already gone out to the states and regions. By supporting the states and regions through these partnership agreements, the NEA makes the arts available in many more communities than it could through our direct grant programs. And generally, you can submit only one application per year per organization. However, there are some exceptions to the rule, so be sure to check the guidelines for clarity. And so, the reason we're here today is to talk about the American Rescue Plan awards. So we have two opportunities through the American Rescue Plan. One is for organizations, and one is for local arts agencies for subgranting. Today, we will talk about the opportunity for organizations. The grants for organizations opportunities. For this, you may request a grant amount for $50,000, $100,000, or $150,000. Applications will be reviewed and considered for recommendation only at one of these requested amounts. Cost share or matching funds are not required for the American Rescue Plan funding opportunity. We encourage you to select a grant amount that is reflective of your organization's size and internal capacity. Applications will be reviewed and considered for recommendation at the requested amount only. Whichever amount you choose, keep in mind the review criteria when crafting your application to make the best case. Think about your organizational capacity, mission, the length of the period of support, the eligible costs, and any unique characteristics of your community. Your application will be evaluated based on the capacity of your organization to carry out the proposal. A grant period of up to 2 years is allowed, and it may start no earlier than January 1st, 2022. And it's important to note that designated local arts agencies interested in subgranting should review the grants to local arts agencies for subgranting program policies with different award amounts and timelines. The American Rescue Plan funds are intended to support day-to-day business expenses or operating costs and not specific programmatic activities, which is what we support in our normal granting process. Please read the guidelines carefully for details about what costs we can support. Support is limited to any or all of the following: salary support, full or partial, for one or more staff positions. Rescue Plan funds may be used to support existing jobs, new jobs, or to restore jobs that were furloughed or eliminated due to the pandemic. Fees and stipends for artists and or contractual personnel to support the services they provide for specific activities as part of organizational operations. Artist fees and stipends should be related to work with a tangible outcome, such as performances, presentations, workshops, and or the creation of artwork. Facilities costs, such as mortgage, principal, rent, and utilities, costs associated with health and safety supplies for staff and or visitors and audiences, such as personal protective equipment, cleaning supplies, hand sanitizer, etc. We all know about hand sanitizer this past year, and marketing and promotion costs. One type of cost is not preferred over the other. It's up to your organization to choose which costs to include in the budget and to make the case in the application as to why they are important in relation to the review criteria. Think about where the funds may make the most impact for your organization or fill a gap that is not currently being funded through other sources. Okay, so now to talk about the review criteria, I'll turn it back over to Sarah.
Thank you, Beth. So we wanted to take a moment to talk about the review criteria for the American Rescue Plan funding, as it differs a little bit from our other funding opportunities. And this framework will be helpful to keep in mind as you're thinking about preparing an application. And, again, these funds are intended to help support jobs in the arts sector, keep the doors open to arts organizations nationwide, and assist the field in response to and recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. So when panelists are reviewing applications in this funding opportunity, they're going to look at the artistic excellence and artistic merit of the proposal. That will include the significance to the mission and the core work of the organization, the ability to carry out an award as shown by the alignment of the budget and other resources with the goals and the requirements of this funding opportunity. As appropriate, the potential to have an immediate impact on the arts workforce, and as appropriate, the potential to serve and or reach individuals whose opportunities to experience the arts are limited by ethnicity, economics, geography, or disability. One of the frequently asked questions we receive is, can I apply to ARP if I've already applied for another NEA grant this year, or for other federal relief funds, such as the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant or Payroll Protection Plan, NEA CARES Act funding. And the answer is yes, you can apply to the American Rescue Plan opportunity. It's really just important to remember that you cannot use multiple federal grants to fund the same activities or costs. So each of those federal sources of support should really be funding something different. If you have received a CARES Act fund in the past, let's say, or PPP, for example, you'll just want to make sure that your American Rescue Plan application is proposing something to cover different costs and a different time frame. In addition, also just note that you cannot use ARP or other federal funding sources as a match for any other NEA grant applications that you might put into the Arts Endowment outside of the ARP opportunity. Another question we get a lot is about work samples. Those are not required for the American Rescue Plan application, and that you also are not required to submit other support materials. So it's going to be a shorter application than some of our other NEA grants. We also get questions about the difference between a project-based grant and a general operating grant. And of course, a reminder that the American Rescue Plan is for general operating support. And to really distinguish between those two, I think in a project-based grant, it's helpful to think about it in respect that all the costs really need to be related to the execution of a specific project. Whereas in an operations-based grant, the eligible costs are not going to be tied to a specific project. For example, let's say that you're a museum who is submitting an application to the American Rescue Plan, and you might be requesting support for staff salaries for a curatorial team, as well as artist fees for teaching artists in your education department, even if those individuals are not going to be working together on the same activities. And that's fine because you're really coming at it more from that operational perspective of the organization overall. Again, a reminder, if you are going to be applying for artist fees related to this funding opportunity or for contractual personnel, that it's really about supporting the services that they provide for specific activities as they relate to your organization's operations. And I wanted to also take a minute to talk about deadlines for these grant opportunities, which are, we definitely encourage you to put on your calendar. As we mentioned before, we have two different categories of funding for this opportunity: grants for organizations, as well as local arts agency subgranting. And of course, we're mostly focused on grants for organizations in this presentation, but if you are a local arts agency that's looking to receive subgranting support, please note the deadlines on this slide. Part 1, submitting a form to grants.gov. That first deadline is July 22nd, 2021. Part 2, submitting materials through the NEA's Applicant Portal, will be from July 27th through August 2nd. And we'll be talking as well a bit more about what those different parts really mean, but this is just to first give you a sense of what those deadlines are. And then for grants for organizations, our deadlines are split up a little differently because we are anticipating such a large number of applications, and we know that there's just such a huge need in the field right now. We're splitting up the timelines based on your organization's legal name. You'll either be in group A through L or group M through Z based on your legal name of the organization. Both groups A through L and M through Z will have that same Part 1 submitting a form to grants.gov deadline of August 12th. So that definitely get that on your calendar. And then the Part 2 deadlines will be different. For group A through L, you'll be submitting the rest of your application materials to the NEA's Applicant Portal between August 19th and August 25th. For groups M through Z, you'll be submitting it between August 27th and September 2nd. And we will also encourage you to reach out to our staff if you're not sure which group you should be in or what to select there. We'll have contact information at the end of this, and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions about that. I'll now turn it to Beth to talk a little bit more about the mechanics of how to apply.
Okay, thank you. So whichever program you decide to apply for, the process is the same. It's a two-part process. Part 1 is where you will work with two federal government systems, the System for Awards Management, or SAM, and grants.gov. You will need up-to-date registrations and the correct permissions through these systems to apply for funding. Once you have current accounts in both systems, The actual form you submit for part 1 of our application is the SF424 form. This form provides basic administration about your organization and shouldn't take too long to fill out. You aren't required to submit any specific details about your project in this step. Think of this step as submitting your intent to apply. It's a way to express your interest in submitting the full application. And we've had a lot of inquiries about where to find the form to complete part 1. So we wanted to go over how to find this on our website. To find the correct 424 form, which is also called the Application for Federal Domestic Assistance / Short Organization Form, go to arts.gov, then click on our grants section. There's a tab at the top. From there, select American Rescue Plan Grants, and then the appropriate opportunity. In this case, we've selected American Rescue Plan Grants to our 2 organizations. So on the left-hand side of your browser, click the How to Apply section. Once you are on the How to Apply page, scroll down the section to the section that reads Part 1, Submit to Grants.gov, and follow along in the steps outlined in the drop-down box. For step 2, go to the Grant Opportunity package. It will show you the correct form to select and will automatically take you to the form on grants.gov. So part 2 then, it is our actual Arts Endowment grant application form. It's where you will submit the bulk of your application and all of the specifics about your project. You'll put together your project narrative, the budget, and details on key personnel. The grant application form is submitted through our own Arts Endowment online platform, which is called the Applicant Portal. The guidelines for each of our funding programs, which are all posted on our website at arts.gov, include step-by-step instructions on using the application portal and how to apply. The instructions for part 2 include an application instructions document. This document goes through all of the questions you'll need to answer for part 2, including not just the questions themselves, but also helpful tips, screenshots of the applicant portal, and the character count for each application field. So you can compile all of your application content, and then you'll enter all of that information into the NEA's applicant portal during the designated time frame. That's a lot of information, but we will be around to answer questions about it. So I'll pass it back over to Sarah.
Thank you. So before we open things up for questions, we wanted to first just offer a couple things to remember about the process. As Beth mentioned, there are some registrations that you need to have in place to complete part 1 of the application process, and those registrations can take some time. So we definitely recommend, if you aren't registered with DUNS, SAM, or grants.gov, to get started with that process as soon as possible. And we do have some information on our website, particularly for first-time applicants, about how to get started with that. We'll see if we can drop that link for everybody to take a look at. A note that late applications are not accepted, so definitely make sure that you're taking note of those deadlines and that your application is complete and submitted before those deadlines. We recommend specifically that you submit part 1, that short form, to grants.gov well in advance of the August 12th deadline, to make sure to just give yourself ample time to resolve any issues. It's open now. You can go ahead and submit it whenever you're ready, so feel free to do so as soon as possible. And we also recommend that you submit all of those part 2 materials to the Arts Endowment's applicant portal well in advance of the deadline. We find that the portal has very heavy hours of usage, particularly from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. Eastern time on the day of the deadline, as everyone's kind of getting down to crunch time with it. We recommend, if possible, avoiding using the system at that time and trying to complete it a bit earlier in advance. You know, every year, unfortunately, some folks are kind of racing to the finish line and sometimes don't meet the deadline. So we definitely recommend trying to get it done a little sooner if possible. I'll also talk a little bit about some other ways that you can stay connected with the Arts Endowment, particularly through our newsletters, which highlight upcoming grant program deadlines, events, and resources. We have a lot of different newsletters that are coming from different agency teams and disciplines. And so it's a really great way to just kind of keep up with what's going on. You can subscribe by going to our website at arts.gov. On the bottom of the homepage, there's a button to sign up for newsletters. And again, if you were, for example, in my portfolio Media Arts, if you wanted to know about our Media Arts grants, you could go ahead and sign up for our newsletter there. And then one other thing that I wanted to highlight are some of the live Q&A sessions that we have coming up specifically about the American Rescue Plan. We're really working to provide a lot of assistance, recognizing, of course, we may have many first-time applicants to the agency and, a lot of interest in this program. So if you have any questions about the application process, we strongly encourage you to consider attending one of these live Q&A sessions where we'll have staff able to really, work with you on answering a lot of your questions. Some of the later sessions happening in August will also be focused really specifically on step 2 of the application process, as you might be getting all of your materials together. Again, definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. And you can see here at arts.gov/ARP-grants, you can go online to see more and register there. And now I will pass it back to Beth.
Thank you. I also want to note before I move on that the session on Friday, July 23rd at noon Eastern will be simultaneously interpreted in Spanish. And we also have a session that will be interpreted with American Sign Language. And I believe that's the one on Wednesday, July 28th. So just look at the link here, arts.gov/ARP-grants for more information. There's also a number of sessions that will be captioned. So we have a slide with a lot of information. This is the way to contact people if you have questions. Given the large volume, we needed to make sure that there was a way for people to reach people if you have a question. So we break it up by alphabetically, organizations with legal names beginning A through L or M through Z. And then if individuals with disabilities can reach the Office of Accessibility at arts.gov or our Civil Rights Office at civilrights@arts.gov if you're interested in alternate formats. Just on a side note, we mentioned that we are always looking for new voices to bring to our panel process. It's a great way to connect with us, learn what the process is like from the other side. And we've been told that it's a great professional development opportunity. So if you're interested in it, you can fill out a form on our website at the URL listed here or contact us directly. Now we'll move into the Q&A session.
Since this grant opportunity is not project related, what does the proposal description look like? That proposal description is going to be really looking for a couple different things. There's a section that asks about the overall mission and work and history of your organization, so you can just really detail the work of your organization there. There's a section that asks for some representative examples of 3 years of arts programming coming from your organization, as well as a bit more about what your request for funding is. For example, if you're requesting funding to support staff salaries, there are questions about what staff and the significance that they have to your organization and your mission and these are all opportunities for you to really kind of flesh that out. And I encourage taking a look at the review criteria again there as you're filling out some of those answers and responses. There's also a section that asks for your organizational budget and for your not project budget per se, but the budget that is going to be related to this grant opportunity. So if you were, for example, requesting $50,000 of grant support, you would include a budget that outlines specifically where that $50,000 of funding would go. So I hope that helps to provide some more information there. And again, that link I included in the chat has all of the questions that you're going to be answering, and you can prepare those responses in advance of submitting. I see another question here about entering information in the applicant portal. Can you work on it over time? The answer is yes. Within that window of about a week that the portal is open, you can save your work, return to it again. And we definitely, we know that you may want to do that rather than kind of doing it all in one go. So we do encourage that you prepare in advance using some of those questions in the PDF link that I shared. But that whole week that the portal's open, you'll be able to go in, save your responses before submitting it. But again, we just advise not waiting really till the very last second to actually submit. Try to give yourself maybe at least 24 to 48 hours in advance if you can to get the application in.
Can we applied at grants.gov now? Is the window open?
Yes, that window is open. So if your registrations are ready, go for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, so if you haven't already registered with SAM and grants.gov, do that now. And then once you are, you can go ahead and do the part one as soon as possible. Can organizations of any size organizational budget apply?
Yes, we welcome organizations of all different sizes to apply, from small to medium to large, and it's totally open.
What is the drop dead deadline? So for part one, you have to get that first part submitted by August 12th if you're A through L and M through Z. And then the second part, the portal is open August 19th through 25 for if you're A through L, and August 27th through September 2nd if you are M through Z. So those are the drop dead deadlines.
I'm also seeing a question here about indirect costs. Can they be included in the budget? And if so, what is the maximum allowable rate? Yes, they can be included in the budget. And you have kind of two options in how you might choose to treat that. You can either include what we say in our guidelines is a reasonable figure for overhead and administrative costs as a line item. So you can treat it that way. Or you can use a de minimis rate of up to 10% of your modified total direct costs. And we have some more specific instructions on that piece in that PDF document that I linked to in that project budget section. So feel free to take a look there to read a bit more about those details. And if you have any questions, to reach out to our staff as needed.
If I apply to my state arts agency for American Rescue Plan funds, can I also apply to the NEA directly? The answer is that you want to check with your state. So like let's say if you're in California and you applied to the California Arts Council for funding through the American Rescue Plan with their funds, check with them because each one is handling it differently. We do not restrict you from only applying to the state funding or NEA funding, but your state might have restrictions.
Which contractor fees or salaries can be included? So when it comes to staff, I'll start with the staff salaries. When it comes to staff salaries, that can be for existing staff at your organization. It can be for the creation of new jobs, or it can be to help perhaps bring back positions that may have been eliminated, or if someone were furloughed due to the pandemic and its economic effects. So, that really, it can be for any of those things. Overall, I would say when it comes to staff, it's again, just thinking about how it relates to the general operations, day-to-day operations of your organization. I will say that the one thing to be aware of with salaries is that we're not able to support fundraising or development staff outside of their time as it might be related to the administration and management of this award. So that's one thing to be aware of. When it comes to contractor fees, that I think for us that includes, for example, artist fees, as well as potentially other contractors that might be involved with your organization, again, as it relates to overall operations.
I want to make sure that you all know how to find there are resources for this. I'll put a link. So we have a number of resources, including frequently asked questions document. We have a recorded webinar that was done back at the end of June that goes into probably a little more detail and maybe some other questions. There should be a transcript you could skim through. We're also going to be translating that or subtitling it in Spanish. So if anyone needs that will be available. We have some technical assistance videos that might be helpful. They go through whether, the eligibility information for local arts agencies and some details about submitting part one and submitting part two. So if you want more information that maybe we didn't cover, you can check those videos out. And we'll be adding more over the next several weeks. So we're just really trying to roll out a lot of technical assistance for this, which is what this webinar is about. We're doing this with other organizations. You might see us out and about in other places, trying to reach organizations that may not have applied to us before, organizations that reach underserved populations, and it really ties in with the current administration's priorities on equity and access to the arts and everything else the government does. So
thank you to everyone that attended, and thank you all for hosting this important webinar. I'm really excited for folks to apply, and good luck to everyone.
well, thank you so much. We
Thank you very
appreciate California Lawyers for the Arts for providing us with this opportunity, and everyone who attended. So good luck, and we hope to see you in the applicant pool.